I'm gonna try something. I'll say class, and you will answer with yes, but you have to answer with yes the way I say class. Okay? Let's try it. Class, class, class?
Yes.
Class?
Yes.
Class?
Yes.
Class?
Yes.
Okay, still works for all ages. Okay. So good morning, my name again is Delfin Villafuerte, and as you may know, I am a public school teacher. When people find out I'm a public school teacher, they always ask me that question, why? Why do you teach? And it's common for us teachers in the public school exactly to hear the question, why just teach? Bakit nagtuturo ka lang? When people ask me that question, I answer one simple sentence. And that simple sentence is, dahil mahal ko ang aking bansa. I teach because I love this country. Pause for impact. But really, the story was way beyond that. Let's go back to my third year in college when I was in semestral break. When I was in Sembric and Ateneo, I attended this what we call the Ateneo Student Leaders Assembly, or ASLA. ASLA was a 5-day, 4-night training seminar, and I entered thinking it was one of those usual, you do an activity, you ask questions, then you gain insights. What I did not expect were the big-time speakers such as Sabrina Ongkiko, who is also a public school teacher, Anna Oposa, and Maria Ressa, who really showed me how beautiful our country is. This is my very inspiring batch, and if you can't see me, that's me there in the red circle. One of the activities in ASLA was we were to go to an immersion site. We were to choose between 4 different sites, a business, health, environment, or education site. People who knew me would think that I would choose the business site, but during that time I thought, I want to try the education site. So I did. What we did then was in Antipolo, we walked over the mountains, across a drawbridge, 1.5-hour hike to a public school. I felt many things then. First was I was bothered, I was restless, I was thinking, ang kapal ng mukha kong magreklamo na meron akong 7:30 classes every day. Ang kapal ng mukha kong magreklamo I have to walk from building A to building B. When you have kids who wake up at 5 o'clock every day in the morning to walk 1.5 hours to this very underwhelming public school. I felt really, really disturbed. Right after that, I went on to Baguio with another organization called the Ateneo Code, and we have what we call the DepEd NLT SGO. It's a training program for student officers nationwide. Now the thing is, we were to facilitate around 1,000 students competing with all of the noise, without sleep, without breakfast, without a voice. It was very, very tiring, but very, very fulfilling. And the problem was, during this time, if I were to complete the entire 5 days, I had to cut my first day of class. And I'm a nerd, as you may have heard. I don't cut class, not even PE, not even Introduction to Ateneo Culture. I never cut class. And this very seemingly hashtag first world problems problem was what I was thinking of. Am I willing to cut class for the first time in my life? And I thought to myself, how ironic is it that I'm teaching students what it means to be a good Filipino, what it means to be a good leader, what it means to be a good citizen, when I myself could not give up one day to stay and teach children. These 2 activities made me realize 2 things. That number 1, I love this country, and that number 2, I loved working with young people, and I loved teaching. When Teach for the Philippines came out in my senior year, I knew that this was the opportunity that was waiting for me. Before first day of class, of course, I would type those long Facebook statuses where you reflect about stuff. And I was thinking, I'm not an education major. I'm not even sure if I made the right choice. You were the first batch. There's no proof of survival. I'm not even sure if after 2 years, will my students be better after. Then I realized that really one thing that matters is that we tried. And that in trying, we already succeed. So try, because you know that there are many things that need to be changed, but what have you done about it? This is my school. It's Gres General Ross Elementary School, and we're 5 fellows in my school. And the first week of class was pretty crazy. Just like in swimming, when you have to jump in the pool to learn how to swim, teaching is the same thing. You don't sit down in a class and think about strategies of how to teach. You don't just sit and make lesson plans. You have to jump in a classroom of 60 kids running around, trying to kill each other, and learn how to teach. And we were all sick. to the point that some fellows were even in the hospital after the first week of class. And you realize that teaching is a job that is not just something that you can do if you just wanted to do. It's a vocation in a sense that there are three things you have to intersect. First is that it has to be your skill. You have to be good at it. Second is that it has to be a world need. Does the world need your job? And the third, which is the most important for me, it has to be something that you love. When you intersect these three things, you will find your vocation. Something that you are good at, something the world needs, and something you love doing. So pursue something that you enjoy. Because really, you only have one life to live. And don't waste your life by not doing something you enjoy. I asked my students during the first week of class, what do you want to be when you grow up? The answers were typical. Gusto ko maging sundalo, gusto ko maging ballerina, gusto ko maging engineer, gusto ko maging abogado, gusto ko maging doktor. One of my students said, "Sure, gusto ko maging delivery man ng McDo." Then I thought to myself, I entered the public school system thinking, I want my students to dream bigger. I want to tell them that, hey, you're dreaming wrong. There are bigger things out there. When this kid told me that gusto ko maging delivery man ng McDo, I thought to myself, maybe that is not my role as a teacher. Who am I to tell you that you are dreaming small? Who am I to tell you that you are dreaming the wrong dreams? When he told me gusto ko maging delivery man ng McDo, sabi ko sa kanya, sige, maging delivery man ka ng McDo. Pero gusto ko maging sobrang galing kang delivery man ng McDo. Yung tipong pag tumawag ako sa McDo, gusto ko ikaw mag-deliver sa akin kasi napakagaling mo. Our jobs as teachers is not to tell our children to dream bigger really, but to make these dreams more real for them, that they can do it. So aspire, because we all have our own ambitions, and really our own ambitions should fuel us to reach whatever you want to. Because ultimately it is this idea, this dream that will change the world. And when you talk about the world change, what is there to change? And I believe our generation is a clueless generation. Primarily because maybe we are fighting over a weird, obscure, and ambiguous kind of freedom. Our grandparents had to fight for freedom from our colonizers. Our parents, maybe from martial law. But our generation, what are we fighting for? Maybe we're fighting for freedom against injustice, oppression, poverty, inequality. And we know that there are many things that need to be changed. But what do we do? My answer is simple. The daunting task of changing the world revolves around the pieces we give of ourselves to others. And all we have to do is to choose. Pumili, pumili at panindigan, pumili at magtaya, pumili at angkinin. Because it does not really matter what job you choose to do or where you choose to work, but it's really how you do your job. It's not about where you go, but how you do wherever you go. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can work for the government, as long as you choose to commit to do good. People often ask me, is it worth it? Is it worth it despite your job opportunities outside? Is it worth it to teach in a public school for 2 years? Let me share you one simple story. This is my student, his name is Casey, Kurt Christian. He's my favorite student, but it's a secret lang, huwag niyo pakita yung video sa kanya. He's my favorite student, he was grade 3, normal age, 9 years old. He entered as a non-reader. He couldn't write his name correctly, he would just tend to memorize words together. He is also, may pagkasiga siya, cool ako, so medyo may pagkabully rin. Which is most likely the reason why he compensates because he is a non-reader. I thought to myself, I had to do something about this student. I don't want him to leave the grade 3 without any improvement at all. So I told him, sige Casey, dalhin mo yung kaibigan mo, si Andre. Punta tayo sa Ateneo. I teach in Ateneo in the afternoons, I teach statistics. And I told them, let's meet in the classroom at 2 o'clock. By 1 o'clock, they were already in the classroom waiting outside. Sabi ko, sige, punta muna tayo sa loob ng classroom, hintayin muna natin yung kotse. And inside, they were already scribbling the words Ateneo on the blackboard. So clearly, they were very, very much excited to get there. In college, we have immersions. And immersions would typically lead us to high-need areas, IP communities. For these students, going to Ateneo was like an immersion for them. Casey was even car sick and on the verge of vomiting on the way to Ateneo. And I was really, really tired. I mean, after 6 hours of screaming at children and you teach for 1.5 hours again in the afternoon, how could you not be tired? Pero nawala yung pagod ko nung naglalakad si Casey at si Andre sa gitna ng Ateneo na parang sila yung hari ng daan. Nawala yung pagod ko nung nakita ko silang tumakbo sa napakabago naming blue oval. Nawala yung pagod ko nung huminto si Casey sa chess room kasi naglalaro pala siya ng chess. Nawala yung pagod ko nung nanibago sila sa lalim at lawak ng aming swimming pool. Nawala yung pagod ko nung naaliw sila meron kaming rifle varsity team. At nawala yung pagod ko kahit may pag-asang baka namin makita si Kiefer Ravena sa Blue Eagle Gym. They sat in my statistics class and they did pretend to take notes. So I was like, really? Before class started, I said, sige, habang hinihintay natin yung bell, ito yung mga whiteboard markers ko. Pwede kayo mag-drawing sa blackboard. And here I have this non-reader who struggled to blend each and every letter to write these words on my whiteboard. Mag-aaral ako sa Ateneo. That evening, I had two objectives. To instill in Casey that number one, I want. And number two, I can. Gusto kong gawin, kaya kong gawin. When he wrote this on the blackboard, I thought to myself, I had I want done. I had to do something about the I can. Before we left, I showed Casey his report card. His report card was blank. And he only had the one grade, values class, with a grade of 80. And I showed him his card. Casey, ito yung report card mo. Bakit sa tingin mo blanco yung mga report card mo? Kasi maingay ako, sure. Hindi ka naman gano'n kaingay, Casey eh. Bakit sa tingin mo blanco yung report card mo? Kasi makulit ako, sure. Hindi naman gano'n eh. Bakit sa tingin mo blanco yung report card? And he was quiet. Casey, alam mo ba ibig sabihin na blanco yung report card? Casey, pag blanco yung report card, ibig sabihin, hindi umabot sa pasado. Casey, matalino ka bang bata? Casey, matalino ka bang bata? He shook his head. Sino nagsabi sa'yo hindi ka matalinong bata? Ako, sure. Ba't mo naman nasabing hindi ka matalinong bata? Medyo nahalata ako na rin kasi, sure. Casey, makinig ka sa sasabihin ko. At huwag na huwag mong kakalimutan ang sasabihin ko sa'yo. Na matalino kang bata. Huwag kang makikinig sa ibang tao pag sinabi nilang hindi ka matalino. Kasi matalino kang bata. Naniniwala ako at maniwala ka rin na matalino kang bata. And at that moment, Casey cried. He cried the most painful and cathartic cry I've ever heard in my entire life. If anything, it is not I who gave Casey hope. Si Casey ang nagbigay sa akin ng pag-asa. And if you think Casey's story is very inspiring, wait until you hear the stories of all the other fellows and all of the other hundreds of thousands of public school teachers in this country. So hope, because now is the best time to be a Filipino. And everything we do for our country is worth it. In math, we often talk about f of x. Padira, no? And we're very, very obsessed with finding that x. What is the x that will give me that answer? When you think about it, the words function make sense. What x will make us function? And when we try to find that answer, we will actually not end up with an answer, but we actually end up with another question. Why? Thank you. Why? Why do we do things? If you asked me 2 years ago, why do I teach for the Philippines, I'd say I teach because I love my country. But if you ask me again now, why do you teach for the Philippines? I teach because of students like Casey. I found my f of x, and that x was to teach. And hopefully, before I end, I'd want all of you to teach as well. Not necessarily join the public school system, although that would be great and you can apply. But to teach in the sense that you will also try, enjoy, aspire, choose, and hope for the Philippines. Because you only have one beautiful country to love, so let us all teach for the Philippines. Thank you very much.